All right. Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be here with Ann Tucker today. It's been a few months since we connected, and in between that, you have you have brought out this beautiful being of your new book called The Map to New Earth. Oh, I'm getting chills just actually
Thank
just even
you.
picking it up and holding it. It's so ah. Oh, good. So first of all, congratulations. It's like,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Such a labor of love. It was
Mhm.
such a joyful. I've written this is my third book writing. This is the first one I would say was a joyful process. The process was absolutely like every morning I was very dedicated. Every single morning I would sit down and I would get into channel and I would be half in, half out. And I was learning as I was writing, and I would have this lovely 2 hour period of just me and Isla focused. And Isla being, people who don't know me, I channel Isla. She is the mother of creation. And it was just being held in this incredibly loving, and to start your day off like in this incredible loving energy every day, like it was magical to the point where I was getting to the end. I'm like, I'm gonna miss this. Like, I really like this experience. Yeah, it was glorious,
Yeah.
absolutely glorious.
I love hearing that. Yeah, and I absolutely loved reading it. And
Thank you.
and what I was saying to you before we started recording is this morning I went on Amazon and I put a review and I said what I'm about to say, which is everybody needs to read this and alongside need to read Heather Ensworth's newest book. The two are like the perfect pair. Seriously.
So
Um,
cool.
yeah, and so yeah, for anybody not familiar with Heather's book, also it's Anne's book talks about at the very beginning you mention that we are, in this 24,000 year cycle that gets described by the Yuga cycle or the precessional cycle, a lot of different names to it and ways to describe it. Um, and then Heather's book goes into this powerful historical overview of what that means. And then it's like your book comes along and fills that in. You know, it's like Heather's like describing so powerfully and beautifully why uh why we're in the moment we're in and
Yeah,
what the heck is going on. And then you come along and go, okay, and now this is what we do.
that's
You know?
awesome. Yeah.
Ah, it's
Oh, how
so
cool.
good. So good. And the other part I want to say in this very, very initial part of our conversation, what it really did for me, two things. Um, you're describing in the book, in a sense, what is New Earth? How do we get there? How do we, co-create that even more powerfully together? And on the one hand, I was reading along and going, ooh, we are doing so good. We are already, you know, putting so much of this into place and within ourselves, right? And I see that in all these communities that we're part of so beautifully happening. And second part, it helped me also see where for myself here's kind of like the next step for me, right? There's like we're doing so good this way and this way and this way and this way. We're on the road. And then it also helped me contextualize, ah, yeah, that's my next step, which for me is more of the part of, relaxing and opening and we can get more into that in a minute. But yeah, so it helped me sort of cheer me on and
Yes.
say, okay, lovingly it said, okay, yeah, and now here's where to go next. So so good. All of
Yay. I'm so glad that's what you took from it. I really am, because it is, I think, and that's why I call it the map to New Earth. The first thing you do on a map is figure out where you are on the map. Like you have to, whereas you are here. Like we search for that. Otherwise, the map has no meaning. And so, like that's it's what you're describing is it's like put you in the context and said this is how to get where you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And so just to give people context, because I would love to mostly focus on, what is it that Isla Isla talks about as us coming more into this feminine, the divine feminine coming back into presence and all of that. But in order to contextualize what that is and why that's important, you, in the beginning of the book, you do such a beautiful job describing what you call these seven stages of, what's the,
Yes, of soul growth,
of soul
basically.
growth.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Um, and one of the things that struck me so strongly in your seven stages and out the way you outlined it is that um, unity and separation, and even the imbalance that comes with that stage of separation, are all important.
Very important. Yes.
Yes. And so, do you want to just give the gist of those seven stages and yeah,
Yeah, and why it's so essential.
yeah.
Gosh, because it's it's a big foundation part of the book.
Mhm.
And the key is to like this idea that we are now in the fifth stage out of seven, that we are in the fifth stage. And what's key about the fifth stage, and I think it's one of the best ways, like in a shorthand way to understand the seven, is that we are in the stage where both the first the masculine and feminine realities overlap, that we are in the stage between separation and unity, and both realities will coexist in our time, which means our role is our reason for incarnating, our role in this time is to be the bridge between the two, to be the ones that can embody both and navigate between them, and we can go there and we can take others with us and move back and forth over the course of our lifetime. So it's not a thing where it is there's the old reality and then stop and then there's a new reality. There's this overlap period, which requires a very different type of think about that. Like think about over the history of like evolution of life on Earth is that we didn't go from land from water beings to land beings. We had the transition species, right? We had those creatures that were able to come up out of the water and exist in both, right? And they had to develop specific adaptations to be able to do that. And we are that. We're the amphibians. We're the
Mhm.
frogs. So the ones that can live in both. And it is a very important stage to be in because of exactly what you were saying is what we have been working on up until now and what we will be working on going forward. So the first stage is sort of the beginning, and it is stillness. It's the moment where you are complete. It's the moment before you feel it's, and I guess to put this in a really human level, it's the moment you're sitting on the couch and you don't have any plans. And you're there and you're just like happy and you're on your couch and you're taking a nap. And it's the moment where all of your needs are met and there's nothing outside of yourself that you need and you're completely content and you feel stillness inside of you because of that. And that from that state, when we're able to achieve that state of true stillness, when we really feel like we have everything and all of our needs are met, and from that state, a new concept can be born, something new, a new idea, a new question, which leads us into stage two. And the question is what gets us off the couch. The question may be, I wonder what's in the fridge. It may be, I feel, oh, maybe I'm hungry. I want to go to a new restaurant. Whatever it is, something gets us up and off the couch. But these ideas of the stage one and stage two, they apply to our daily lives, but they apply to our soul. They apply to the cosmos, to the universe, to everything. That everything starts, new life begins from this place of stillness. And every new venture, everything we create starts from the place of like open contentedness, completion. And then it's a question is what evolves out of that. And so that puts us on the path of exploring this question, which moves us out of that complete state into imbalance, which takes us further and further down the path through stages two, three, and four, down the path of separation. And separation is an incredibly important concept. I think of it as like a tool that we use to further and further refine who we are. Like the goal of separation is to get super, super clear on the I, who am I? Like, what am I? So I think about it as that initial question of the first statement of God, which is my word. So please substitute yours. But the word God saying I am in the state of completion in stage one, and then in stage two saying, what am I? And that question is then what starts stage 2, 3, and 4, the process of separating from yourself to turn back around and look at yourself and say, look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is what I am. But that process of separation, how do we get the most out of it? We get the most out of it by continually refining, I am this, not that. I am this, not that, which is polarity, separation. It's this process of splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting and getting more and more specific to say, I am this, not that. So, and we want to get to the space where we have as much clarity about self and in within the container of the all that we can get. And so it takes this process of separating. When we get to the stage that we are in right now, the fifth stage, it's not like we want to take the polarity in the world and just flush it down the toilet and all of a sudden everyone's going to be singing kumbaya. Like it is we the challenge like this model that we would literally go from separation to unity with this heartbreak in between is unity by itself without separation becomes the Borg, from Star Trek. It becomes unithinking. It becomes no diversity. It becomes this. And how do you avoid that? How do you create a totally harmonious planet where everyone's on the same vibe without it becoming that, while maintaining individuality and the growth points of having diversity inside of the human consciousness? We do it by perfecting separation and bringing it into unity with us. So to get to, and this is where it becomes, there's a fail safe. We cannot get to unity except through the perfection of separation.
Yes.
So
Can I
yeah,
toss in one thing there?
yeah.
Because it was so good. So good. Um yeah, that part of the book just, flipped certain things on their heads for me in a really beautiful way. But one thing that I have channeled that is so parallel to this is I channel the planets, and when a year or two ago I was channeling Saturn. You know how Saturn has rings?
Yes.
Um what Saturn said was so fascinating. I was like, so good. Um, he, they, she, it said, um, my energy is a reminder, is like an embodiment of I'm sort of like a parallel to the structure of an atom. And part of the energy of Saturn is, we often associate the planet Saturn with boundaries.
Yes.
And what
Interesting.
Saturn was saying is that I literally the structure of my body is again parallel to an atom in the sense that um, I model the perfection of the balance of separation because like if you imagine an atom, right, and all the particles of the atom, I'm getting chills again. Um, Imagine if all those particles just collapsed into one point. Like
Yeah.
the atom wouldn't exist. It would just become like
Yes.
nothing. I don't know what
Yeah.
that would be.
Yeah.
So I, as Saturn, help you recognize, oh, the perfect exact sort of divinely guided distance between me and you or whatever is
Yeah.
this in this moment. And then it's going to change in this moment.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we don't want, right, it's exactly that. That's not our goal, right? We talk about
Mhm.
unity consciousness. So it's easy, even for me,
Yeah.
to sit there and go, oh, okay, we want to be the one. And I channel all the time about being the one, living the one light. But
Yeah.
then, but this point that you're making is so important. You have to perfect the separation in order to get there. Yes, keep going.
Yeah.
It's just so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the seven stages spell out that process and then describe this process of moving from this whole state of stillness through the process of separation and then back into unity and back into wholeness. And so and describe that from the perspective of God, from the perspective of the universe, all the way down to me and you. And then here's what's super cool is that as I was working on this book, and there's a lot, there's the book goes deep into like how does this play out in our lives and everything else like that. But as I was working on it, I started writing it with Isla, and she was giving me the information, and I probably was 50 pages in before I realized that it needed to be expressed as a model. Like I didn't get that right off the bat. It took me a while where I got all the pieces and then I started like, wait a minute, this is really sequential. It should really be expressed as a model. So I started putting it into a model. I did this, and I thought, oh, this is 7 stages. Okay, this is all making sense. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks that I have another book that has a 7 stage model in it that I
Yes, I
wrote
love
10 years ago
hmm
and absolutely blew my mind because I was the last person to know. You know what I mean? That this book that I had already been working on for 6 months was in fact an expansion of the concepts that I had wrote about 10 years ago in my first book, which it's this one, which is undoubtedly awesome, which is about the 7 stages of creation and how each of us, when we incarnate, we inhabit one of those 7 elements of creation and how we play it out as creators in our life. So when it just blew my mind when I realized that because what I felt was this incredible feeling of this book, this new book was always going to be written. I just didn't realize it. Like it was
it.
always waiting. It was always there. And I had dreams back in the day, like from early days, 10 years ago, I had dreams that there would be a table with 3 books on it. So I always knew there was 3 books. Like it was on the table for me were 3 books that was waiting to be written. And this is my third book, but I had
Mm.
no idea I didn't realize it was going to be that these were related. So that was a thrilling moment of like, it's so cool when we can look at our life in retrospect and say, oh my gosh, this was all planned. This was all planned. And I didn't know it. And how fun that they didn't tell me before. How fun that I got to stumble into it and then put the pieces together and say, I get it.
I
Yeah.
can really relate. I can really, really relate. Yeah. Yeah, and I won't dwell on it, but I'm channeling this series of eight books called Living the One Light
Oh
series,
my gosh.
and I years ago channeled the first three, published those in 2018, 2019, and then yeah, the others are taking their divinely guided time, I guess. But yeah, so many points along the way I've gone, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're doing. That's amazing. But what? How did that happen?
It's
Okay.
the coolest.
It's
Yeah.
really like such a weird process.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
but yeah. Yeah, and there are other weird parallels between that series and this book, your book. But anyway, I won't go there right this second. Um, one thing I would love to hear a little more about because in this section of the book was so brilliantly done and really helped expand my consciousness around this. Can you give also the nutshell version of why imbalance is important? Like we look at the world and we see all
Yeah.
this imbalance, and I
Yes.
think our knee-jerk reaction is, "Oh my God, that's bad. When is it going to end?" Like we just
Yes.
want it to be fixed. But can you describe, you give the perfect analogy in your book about
Oh, thank you. I have so many analogies in there. I'm not sure which specific one you're thinking
the
of.
walking, the
The
stepping forward.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a way of understanding the 7 steps and the idea of imbalance. So imbalance is one of the ways that we figure out what we are not, what we don't want. And so it's a little bit about how we further refine ourselves through separation. So one of the ways to think about and how to bring this concept of the 7 stages into the body, understanding that the body is a perfectly good example to understand the universe, that our body is a model of the universe. So everything, there's nothing about the way the universe works that we can't understand because we are in fact the universe. So like we don't have to know physics or math to be able to get it. So we can look at simple things like walking as a way of understanding this process of how our soul grows and these 7 stages. You start every single step from a place of stillness. Imagine you're standing, in an elevator and you're just waiting and you're not even really waiting. You're just in stillness and the elevator is taking where you need to go and you're just standing. And then when the doors open, then all of a sudden there is the question, what's outside this door? And that question is, again, it gets you off the couch. It takes the first step out of the elevator. But the process of taking a step, when you are standing, you are balanced. You have a state of balance. When you step out to explore a question, that what walking actually is falling. While walking is falling, and you put your foot out in front of you to catch yourself.
Mm.
So the process of leaving that state of stillness immediately throws us out of balance,
Yeah.
and we have to transfer our weight. And there's a process of actually committing where we put our foot down. Where are you going to put that foot down? Is it a stable place? You have to choose the place you're going to put your foot down, and then slowly transfer your weight to that foot, and then gradually leave and separate from where you were. Lift that back foot up and bring it forward to your new standing spot, which is your new place of stillness. So that represents a series of choices. That one step represents the evolution of the entire universe. It represents a series of choices that we make in the process of leaving where we were and landing where we're going.
Yeah. Amazing, right? And that imbalance is actually inevitable.
Yeah.
And really, we would be very sad if we didn't have it because it would mean we never moved.
Yeah, exactly. It would mean no growth. Is
Yeah.
that we have to go through this process of increasing separation. And it is literally, it's like the angels for a long time have been saying to me that it is a funny thing that we dislike change so much because we are in fact the frequency of change.
Oh,
And
really is. Oh,
yeah.
oh,
And they say that we are waveform, that we think of ourselves as being very solid because we can touch ourselves, and this desk feels solid and we feel very solid. But in fact, we are just a repeating waveform that condenses, like, but it's still movement. Everything about us is light that is in motion. And what happens to light if you make it stop moving? If you think about that, if you have light and you stop it, no more light. The light, there is no such thing as light that is still. Doesn't happen. That wave form, what happens to a wave in an ocean if you stop the wave? No more wave, right?
mm,
It's just still, it just becomes the ocean. There's
right.
no life in it. It just recedes back into the all. So for us to exist, we have to stay in motion. We have to move. And if we ever choose to stop moving, then we will cease to exist.
Mm,
So this process of separation and growth, this process of walking, is the process through which we continually reinvent and create ourselves. And it's the process through which we continue to expand, which is how we continue to exist.
yeah. Amazing. So then, do you want to give the nutshell version of the stage we're at now? You kind of already touched on it, but
Yeah.
yeah, because I
Yeah,
would love
it
the
is.
entire, yeah.
Yeah,
Go.
it is. I think it's the most exciting thought is because we often wonder, like, and we hear all the time that it was a really big deal to come to Earth right now. Like being incarnated right now is a really big deal. And many of us, some of us have been human all along. Some of us are just stepping into the human incarnation to be here for this. There's people from all over the galaxy, all over the universe are here right now for this incredible ride. So why? Like, what makes this time so special? And to be the transition team that takes humanity through stage 5, from the reality based in separation to the reality based in unity. And I say, not, it's not a switch, it is through, right? We have to move through it. So we have to be the amphibians.
Yes.
That process is, the way I describe it in the book is that it is like things have separated at this point within humanity. We have separated into the form that is the finest degree of separation that you can create. So it is literally like we are, if you take, and I use the example of the lungs. And if you follow the lungs down through that they come through the trachea and then it splits into two globes, and then those split into trachea, into little tiny bronchioles, and they split and they split and they split and they split until finally at the very, very end, there's these little tiny air sacs called alveoli, and they are the things that actually do the job of transferring the air into the body and back again. We are the alveoli. We are the end of the line. We are the last, and so in other words, human consciousness cannot split any further than this. So we are at the maximum point of split. So what that means is that our job as living a life is to be able to transfer the oxygen that we breathe in into the body and exhale the carbon dioxide. That's our job. So we have to learn how to be very transparent. We have to learn how to be very fluid. We have to learn how to let that air move through us. So this is and to absorb and release. We have to learn to allow, let go. How often do you hear that from spiritual teachers? Let go, allow, be free. It's because we are the alveoli. That's our job, or alveoli. So it's our job is to be the humans that allow this process of exchange to happen, the new
Well,
for the old. And that's what we're doing. And it's pretty cool. So, and it's all about every single one of us, just like in the lungs, every little air sac counts. Every little human counts because we are doing this job of respirating. We are the ones that are actually accomplishing the breath. Yeah.
and you make another incredibly brilliant point with all that that flipped my perception so amazingly. Again, I speak for myself here, but I think a lot of us have this tendency to feel like, okay, we've been in this illusion of, or this time of separation, illusion of separation, the time of forgetting, all of that. And on a higher level, I know that that's not nothing, there's nothing wrong with it. But the human me absolutely can feel like there's a heck of a lot wrong with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but the point you make about the construct of the lungs is it's actually only at the level of that teeny tiny like alveoli,
The air
the
sac. Yeah.
finest separation part. When we are so much in that separation state to such an extreme, it's only then that we can exchange the oxygen, carbon
Yes.
dioxide, all the upper part of the respiratory system, like the trachea and the
Yeah.
bronchial,
Can't do
they
it.
can't. They
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So this is actually it's like exquisite,
Yeah.
actually, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Fascinating. So there's nothing, it helps me to relax. Like there's nothing wrong on that level of experiencing it. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it is so much about this experience of where we are today is about letting go of our judgment of where we are today. That we have it is so easy because this process is a chaotic process. And there's so much that we want to exhale. There's a lot of stuff that's coming up to the surface to be seen and to be exhaled. There's
Yeah.
so many things that you can look at into the world and you can say, how in the world does that exist? And how could it be allowed to
Yeah.
exist? But the fact is that it's not new. It was always there. We're just discovering it. It is just now coming up to the surface to be exhaled. And that's
Uh,
why it's here. So, and that's our job. And if we get attached to it, if we fight with it, if we struggle with it, if we try to force it not to exist, if we repress it, if we force it not to exist, we're in a sense repressing it again. We have to acknowledge its existence and come to peace with the truth of it. Say, yes, that was true. These terrible things happened and are happening. And I
yeah.
have to come to peace personally, and we all do, with the fact that this is a part of humanity and we are human right now. And we have
Mhm.
to come to peace with this is part of that experience. And it's in some way, one way or another, it's in all of us. And we
Yeah.
have to say, okay, I understand, I accept that this is there. And from that space, we let go, right? We let go of the fight of it. We stop repressing it. We allow it to exist. And therefore, we allow us to exhale and to
Yeah.
let it go and to create something new. So this is the challenge, is to be in our world and to not be reactive to our world, to not try to fight the world or repress the world, which is like what we've been doing, is trying to, whatever we don't like to see, we have tried to repress.
Mm.
So, and that's inside of ourselves with all the different layers of ourself, any experiences that we wish we never had, that we push down and try not to feel and try not to experience emotions we'd rather not feel. Have to, and so our job as the transition team is to do our best to allow the things in the world and the things in ourselves to rise to the surface, which they naturally want to do right now. Right? They are
Yeah.
all coming to the surface to be exhaled. So to exhale them, we have to process them through our heart space, which we do by not resisting, which is by allowing them to exist, acknowledging that they had existed, and then stop fighting them and letting them pass through us.
Yeah. And another, beautiful point you make that matches certainly things I say and lots of other people say, but it's so important, and the way you say it's so important, is how crucial our individual healing is. It is not surface level. It's not,
Yeah.
frivolous that we're doing individual healing because I mean, I think we can look out there, quote unquote, in the world and see all these horrible things happening, which are truly genuinely horrible.
Yeah.
But I know in my life, if I look even closer, like there's a situation going on. Luckily, I'm not involved, but I'm witnessing it in kind
Yeah.
of the circles that I could be part of, but I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
luckily not.
Yeah.
Um, where people's shadow is not has not been healed or addressed, and it's not being handled, in my opinion, in a
Hmm.
healthy way at all. And
Yeah.
it's really sad. And so what you're describing and this opportunity and the reason we're here on the planet, what I observe is um in myself. It's like I want to bring it back to myself because I don't want to sit over here judging so and so and this and that. What I witness in my own life is um how crucial it is that we do come into a lot of the changes that you describe actually in the more later in the book, and I would love to get to at least a little bit of that. Um, but one way I think would be accurate to sum up, the switch internally
Yeah.
is you describe how we've been in this more quote unquote masculine or striving, action oriented way of being. And
Yeah.
now we're being invited to, number one, let go of those karmic patterns, exhale that excess energy that's no longer needed, come out of the karmic wheel of sort of repeating
Yes.
over and over and over again the same stuff.
Yeah.
But that takes work. That takes work. And also, number two, really struck me personally was relaxing back into a state of being much, much more often than we've been trained to do. And within that, I would say also coming into what you call, what Susie Miller calls, a lot of people call the field of love.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's so, I mean, that just all of what I just said right there, that could be, 5-hour conversation
Yeah.
at least. You're going to be doing a whole course on this. So, so it really will be. But yeah, what's important to you? What do you want to go to with
Oh gosh. I think the idea of the field of love is a really exciting one. That
Yes.
and the idea that that reality is a field that we are creating, that our universe, and so that who Isla is, the she has created a field which is the universe, and we are living in it. So it's like her womb space, but it's not a physical womb, it is a field. And within that field, there are certain rules and boundaries, which we call sacred geometry and things like that. We are the same. We are just like Isla. She's not on a pedestal. She's not different from us. We inherited through her all of her ability to create a universe. And we do it here on Earth currently. And we are generating a field of reality, which is a co-created experience. And so, but it is created out of this old state of consciousness, which is really based in the energy of will, of I am, the first energy of the universe, I am. And it is the energy of separation, which then it's this idea of who am I as opposed to you. And so in the same way, we will generate a new field as we go through this shift of consciousness. And it's not, as I was saying, it's not all or nothing. It's not a thing where we necessarily will go there all in one fell swoop. We will go in and out of this new state of consciousness, little bit, little bit, little bit. And I think of it as like weaving a tapestry. Like every time we are able to hold that higher frequency, we are laying down another thread, and we are again starting, and it's already in process. There's already some threads up there, and we are co-creating a brand new reality that's based in the energy of love.
Mm, mm,
And
yeah.
so the will-based reality, very head-based, which is why it's a karmic experience. The love-based reality is heart-generated. So it is no longer a karmic experience. It is now a heart-based It's all about learning to become masterful creators. So sort of the purpose of the Earth School changes in the new reality. So, but I love this idea of of the field and that we are the ones that can generate that field of, so we generate the co-created reality. We also generate our own personal field of experience and what happens in our own lives. Yeah.
Well, we're constantly creating a field,
Yeah.
whatever that is, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, I'm thinking about this situation that I'm luckily not part of,
Yeah.
but I feel in the field of that situation, it is a field of something that's not love to
Yeah.
me. I mean, again, it's like, whoa, so they're creating this massive field,
Yeah.
but it's again, always becomes a choice. What kind of field do we want to engage with? What do we want to be like? It's like we are, a lot of people talk about ourselves being like a toroidal field. Literally,
Right. Yeah.
we're constantly putting out energy of all kinds.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I have this little story coming up, which I just give this teeny tiny example that a lot of people in my community have probably already heard me tell like two or three times, but it feels, I don't know, important. Um, this one example of years ago, in my 20s, the end of my 20s, I was a psychotherapist, but then I was also a massage therapist, body worker. Okay, so I had this client body worker client who I kept for about 20 years. And 6 years ago, uh, he had open heart surgery, and he asked me to come to the hospital many times after the surgery to just kind of help things along, just with energy work. And on the last day when he was supposed to be discharged, he called me unexpectedly, and he said, "Martha, please come to the hospital." And I did. I arrived, and um, I walked in. It turned out like he looked at me like deer in the headlights. It turned out that his heart had gone into uh, AFib, so it was having a really hard time regulating. And he looked like he thought he was going to die. He looked
Oh,
really, really, really scared.
oh.
And there were nurses in there trying to help. And they said, "Can you just hang on a second?" So they apparently had him on an IV medication all night long, this all morning. Nothing was helping. And long story short, eventually the nurse said, "Okay, do it, whatever you're here to do. I don't know what you're here to do." But I went over to him and literally just I put my hands on his back very gently. Didn't do massage. I mean, just put my hands there. And I had this image of being his mother in Wales, which is where he originally was from. And I felt this wave of powerful divine love went
Ooh.
through my heart, through my arm, my hands, and went into his back, into his body. And he was still on a heart monitor. And the nurse came in and was like, "What did you just do?"
Oh my
And
gosh.
his heart regulated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right?
Isn't
Like
that
that's
cool?
it, right? You
Hmm.
see, like it. Oh,
Hmm.
and the part that is always stuck with me since then is that when the medical personnel, the nurses, the doctors, et cetera, were walking into the room, as I was watching beforehand, they would walk in the room. They wouldn't even acknowledge him. They went straight to the machine. They were like watching the monitor like this.
As
So,
opposed to looking at the patient.
yeah, right? So it's like, well, what was the cure? I
Yeah.
mean, it was literally the field of love. Like
Yeah.
literally, that's it.
Hmm.
I didn't do anything. Um, so and he's fine. Like this 6 years later now, he's never had his heart is doing great. So
That is awesome.
um, yeah, like that to me, that kind of sums up what is the field of love. We always have the option to be that,
Hmm. Hmm.
and to be walking around the world again. But it's okay. This is the next part I would love to hear your thoughts on. The other big distinction is when our goal is to be the field of love.
Yeah.
I think there's also a misconception that that means being like, "Oh, everything's fine. I just love you. It's all good. Whatever, anything goes." To me, that's not how it works.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, any thoughts about that? Because that's something I don't think you addressed in the book, but I would love your thoughts on.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I do talk about that briefly in the book about the
Oh, okay, good.
idea, yeah, about the idea of loving what is. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is this idea that loving what is does not necessarily mean liking what is. That to love what is means to give love to what is, which is really
Mm,
different from loving it like, I love it, it's so great. No,
mm,
because you're not. There's a lot of things in reality that you're not going to love.
mhm.
But the worse it is, the more it needs love. So loving what is noticing this is an area that really needs love. And rather than saying, I'm going to fight that thing because I don't want it to exist, which is really saying there's a part of me, a part of humanity I wish didn't exist. So I'm going to fight it, which think about what that's like. That if the thing that's broken needs love, and we say, well, I don't like you, so I don't want you to exist. So that's again just compounding the wound, compounding the injury.
Right.
Whereas, if you have a person, let's say a child who's having a tantrum, who's
Yeah.
really just exhausted and frustrated in their grocery store and they're laying on the ground and they just are throwing a fit. And if you
Hmm.
yell at that child,
Hmm.
right, doesn't make it better. If you try to repress that child, you restrain them, doesn't make it better. But if you just are able to find a place of stillness and give that child love,
Yeah.
they often will calm down and settle, and they'll be able to express their emotions in a more constructive way.
Hmm.
And so it's that idea that I think it is really trying to notice where we are reactive and fighting our reality as part of our job of being this transition team, of being the little air sacs where we have to let things flow through us. We have to learn how to come to peace with a time period that is incredibly upsetting, but there's a lot in it we don't like. And a lot of one of the things I would say as we are in the world, being the transition team, is that as we look out into the world, not everything affects each person to the same degree. That for you it may be the plight of the whales. For me it could be the plight of the rainforest. It could be that it's going to be a different thing. That it's that there'll be something that lands in such a way that we're like, how can that be? I'm going to fight that thing. This is injustice, this is wrong. But it's not everything. So if it was an objective truth, we would be as upset about everything in the universe that was wrong. But we are not. We pick and choose the things that tick us off. It might be women's rights. It might be Black Lives Matter. It might be, Epstein files. It might be, what is it? What is the thing that really hacks you off? It might be that there's a ton of garbage on the side of the freeway. Like, what is it that really makes you mad? And why doesn't everything that's wrong in the world make you that mad? And my answer is because that if there's something in the world that upsets you, it's because it's a reflection of something that already exists inside us. That on some level, that is showing us a piece of ourselves that we wish didn't exist, that we are fighting with. So if it's the Epstein files, it might be a situation where in our own lives we felt victimized in that way, and we are fighting it, and it grips us and it keeps you awake at night because you wish it didn't exist and you want it to never have happened. And so when we are fighting reality, we are in fact taking an experience of ours or a feeling of ours or a fear of ours or a part of us, and we're saying stop existing. So our part of being the little air bubbles at the end that can transfer the air, the air sacs, is to become extremely conscious of what we are reactive against, and to take a pause and to work with that. And I understand it's not always fast or easy, because often this is what is going to touch on some of our deepest wounding, some stuff that we may not even remember. I most of my wounding was from the womb or from birth, believe it or not. The bulk of my wounding was birth and womb space. So it's very hard to access that through memory. But you can certainly access it by seeing what reality is showing you. And if we can come to peace with that, not by loving what is, which means we don't have to love it. You do not have to love the Epstein files, but does it need love? Absolutely. It absolutely needs love. And so, can we get to the space where we recognize that when we give it love, if you think of everything we're fighting as playing tug of war, that you are pulling on that rope, trying to pull the other side into a tar pit so it no longer exists, and you are pulling and pulling and pulling. What happens if you let go of your end of the rope? The game goes away. It literally dissolves, it disappears. So we are, in fact, adding energy to the system. The more we fight it, the more energy we add to it. And by doing that, it continues. And we don't want to bring that into our new reality. We don't want to bring that into the new earth. So the only way to not bring something into the new earth is to stop giving it energy and to come to peace with it, which means giving it love, not liking it, but giving it love. And you can apply this to everything. This is how I got over my hurt from, I have two failed marriages that were both incredibly difficult moments in my life. And how did I come to terms with that? How did I find forgiveness, which was so hard? I remember there was a time when I was just struggling, particularly in my first marriage that fell apart because I think it's just extra hard to let go of the dream of the nuclear family, you know? And I was really struggling with forgiveness. And what was hard is I wanted to forgive and I couldn't. I just kept coming upon, like, the feelings just wouldn't go away and I didn't know what to do. And it was before I had really gone through my own awakening and I didn't have any tools. I didn't know what to do. And I remember I was driving, trying to find a parking lot, a parking spot at the gym. And I remember thinking at the time that I had started trying on the idea that if I just said, well, you know what? He was just a really bad guy. Like, you couldn't have been different because he was just that bad. And it didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it made me worse. And as I was
Hmm.
driving around, I realized when I did that, I was giving that situation energy. I was creating an even more polarity and distance. I was putting him on a pedestal of evil. You know what I mean? Like, he's a terrible person, which he's not. Everybody's got good and bad, you know. But in my trial, trying to find my path to forgiveness, I tried that on for a while of like, oh, he's just that bad and that's why it happened and it's not my fault, right? Got me nowhere. I finally realized, and it kind of just came driving around the parking lot that day, it hit me like a ton of bricks, that my only pathway through was to understand that what happened didn't happen to me, it happened for me, that it was in fact the pathway that freed me from what was honestly not a happy marriage. And it put me on my spiritual path. It was an absolute gift. And I can look at it in retrospect now and I see that with absolute clarity that I was asleep. Before that, I was asleep and now I'm awake. And so if it wasn't for, and I would not, it would have been very hard to get me out of that sleep that I needed to have my entire foundation of my life ripped away so that I would question everything. And so he did that for me. And so I may not say, boy, I may not like that person, but I can certainly be grateful and I can love their higher self. The higher self that I made this deal with, that we planned this before I was incarnated. I'm grateful, so grateful, because I see what it did for me and I see how I have changed as a result. So, but I'm super glad that that person doesn't live on the same side of the country as me.
Well, and that actually touches on what I'm thinking. Two interrelated things there. One, okay, so I'm going to come back to your example in a second. To think about the example of me in the hospital with my client, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm imagining if I walked in the room and started, I don't know, yelling at the fact that he's having a heart problem. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I could decide, oh, I don't like that he could die. And I could, like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
start
Freak
screaming.
out and
Like,
have an emotional, like, yeah, oh, I'm
yeah,
scared you might die.
which,
Yeah.
if you're his child or his wife or something, then of course I would totally understand
Yes.
that you might
Yeah.
do that. Truly, then that's totally understandable. Yes.
Yeah.
But me coming in to try to help, that's not going to be helpful, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then but the other part that your example gives, a great segue into is I'm wondering your thoughts about the combining of both loving what is
Hmm.
and the perfection of separation. Like in your case with your marriage,
Hmm.
loving what is does
Hmm.
not mean that you go back and be married in a bad
No.
marriage.
No,
That's
yeah,
not what that means.
right.
Right. Like
So
yeah, sorry.
very
Yeah, go.
different. So the perfection of separation means that we get to a space where we finally realize that we are all that we need. So
Mm,
being in a bad marriage by definition means that I am reaching out of my own space bubble into someone else's space bubble and expecting them to complete me in
yeah,
some way, right? I'm
yeah,
expecting their validation. I'm expecting their love to fill whatever love I didn't receive. I'm expecting them to somehow be responsible for whatever is happening in my life. I am not complete. I am making another person responsible for me in some way. And so that's what creates this sense of chaos in relationships. And through the process of perfecting my own separation, I can finally get to the place where I recognize, whoa, wait a minute. The only person who's going to make me feel loved is actually me. The love that I'm craving isn't somebody else's love. It's my love. I am craving to be loved by me, and nobody else can fill that because they're not me.
yeah,
And when I finally get to that truth, all of a sudden I become the perfection of separation.
yeah.
And that is when everything opens up, when it opens up our connection to source and it opens up our heart space, and boom, the field of love is generated.
Exactly. And that, what you just said, that is precisely why it is so important that we are doing our own quote
Yeah.
unquote inner work. Like we cannot actually help the world if we walk around in a state of still trying to get this there and yelling at this
Hmm.
and blah, blah, blah. Like that's not helping. It
Yes.
really
Yeah.
doesn't. Right. And it takes a lot of concentration. It's not, again, speaking for myself, it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Um, but lots of us are doing it, and I'm witnessing it in so many of people in my community, and in our communities, really people are really dedicated to doing that healing and to, making this transition and all of it. I mean, it's so powerful,
Yeah.
and it's just a
It's the path. It is
path.
the most important thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I am a channel, but first and foremost, I'm a healer. It is my reason for being here at this time is to be a healer. And
Yeah.
that is the majority, all of my work is, yes, I wrote the book, but the all of my work that I do is healing work that I do group programs, as you know, my soul convergence program, which is, it's all about this. And that's why I think why there are so many healers on the planet right now is because this is how we do it, right? We have to become the perfection of separation. And sometimes it's really hard to do on our own. Like I think it's asking a lot of ourselves. There's no reason to do it on our own. Like I think everybody like we need each other. And it's a gift. When you bring your wounds to another person and involve them in your own healing journey in that way, I think it creates a transformative experience for everyone involved. When I mean bring your wounds to them, I mean when you involve a healer or a therapist or whatever pathway feels most effective for you. But I think it is not a burden, it's a gift.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And there's so much more in the book where you outline, so many other components of this, what New Earth is, how
Yeah.
we're getting there. Before we close, would you mind touching on one of those components that really stuck out to me, yet another part?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think we have time for like one more thing, or maybe it's like a taster for other people. But I absolutely adored also the section on sexuality and how I think it's Isla talking, how she or you see us evolving with sexual. It resonated so much with my experiences, with what I feel in myself. Yeah. Do you want to give the gist of that? So
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, that message, I thought it was such a powerful message from her. The book is like it's about 40%, I don't know, I said maybe 40% direct channeling and 60% of like talking about the channeling and talking about stuff. And that was a direct channeled message. And yeah, it is an amazing explanation of sexuality as a way of where two people come together, it becomes through that union, it is actually a pathway of connecting to source.
Yeah.
And it completely changes, like in our world where I feel like our sexuality has been completely corrupted, in
Yeah.
terms of what we're taught and the examples that were shown, and yeah, the way that it's talked about. I think it's so unfortunate. And I think we are locked out of what should be an incredible spiritual experience,
Yeah.
and just because it's spiritual doesn't mean it has to be pious. You know what I mean? It's spirituality is like we are spiritual beings, and we still go to the bathroom, and we still, you know what I mean? Like, and you're still spiritual even when you're doing those things. But it is sexuality is meant to be a passageway through which we activate the energies inside of us, and it can bring us right up to God, which is an
Mhm.
amazing reframe, and I think heightens all of our expectations. Like, what does Cosmo have to say about that?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think one of the key components there again, from at least what I was gleaning from what you're saying, is the importance of coming into that perfection of separation within ourselves and
Yeah,
then having the ability to meet if we choose. And I love the way you repeatedly say, if and only if we choose to. Like,
yeah, yeah,
so anyway, that's a subtle kind of add on there, but I loved
yeah,
it. But yeah, if we choose to come together with another person, that it has the potential to be a completely different
yeah,
experience than what we typically have had or yeah, thought was possible. But coming in, doing that inner work to come into
yes,
that perfection of separation within our own being is the
yeah.
only way we could have that possible.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
what would it be like? And if you can think into any of your own personal, I think for all of us, think into our own personal intimate experiences and say, in that moment, was I in the perfection of separation, or was I focused on the other person? Was I focused
Totally.
on what they think about me? Was I in my head? Where was I?
Hmm.
Where was my consciousness in that moment? Was I in a space of completion internally where I was receptive and available, or was I everywhere? Where was I?
Hmm.
And the goal would be to get to the state as two people coming together who are both experiencing in that moment the perfection of separation coming into union, which is a
Yeah.
pretty amazing concept.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even, I can see so many parallels, even if we don't literally physically have a sexual partner, that there would be
Yeah.
like even just the way we relate to the world, even the way, we relate to, you talk also about friendships and how much more deep those will become and are becoming and can become and
Yeah.
just I mean, everything. There's this huge wave, this ripple effect that I already feel starting, truly, actually,
Yeah.
as more and more and more we do that work to come into that perfection of separation within ourselves.
Yes.
Um, I hadn't known to call it that until I read your book, literally, and this conversation right now. But that's exactly it. It's really exactly it. And so good. So
So
good.
fun to talk about it with you.
Oh my goodness. No, I'm seriously so grateful. And the
Thank
combination again, your book and Heather's book together, it's like you need to go like just it's
I'm
the
definitely going to get her
dynamic
book too. I
duo.
don't have it yet. Yeah, I'll read
Yeah.
it. I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah. You guys should talk for sure.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Hmm. Um, well, anything, I definitely want you to describe all of your programs, your upcoming workshops with the book, all the soul convergence, all the things. But anything else you feel called to say before you do that?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think the thing that just comes forward, like here we are, it's 8/8, we're at the
Mm.
beginning of this period of incredible manifestation and the eclipse season. So it's a period of massive change for people, and change is an opportunity. It's like we were saying earlier in the conversation that we are the frequency of change. So change isn't something to fear. It just means you're alive, right? It means that you have a chance to express yourself in a brand new way into the earth. And so how do we do that in the way that is going to be most in truth with who we are today? And my Friday message was about that. I like gave us a really cool practice for creating into the new, and a lot of it is about through contentment. It's this that it gets back to the whole thing you and I have been talking about this whole time of coming to peace with what is. So where can we focus on what's working right and expand that over the next couple weeks? How can we put our head, put our mind, put our heart on what we're doing right, what we love in our lives, that positivity, and just trusting that feeling state to create with us the new earth and the next new year ahead, what's coming, to try to do it from that state of yeah, of joyfully embracing the things that are amazing in our lives already. Yeah. So I just would
Exactly.
say, yeah, just that thought. Let's celebrate this period of change.
Yeah. And I commented on your that video because
Yeah,
yesterday.
I saw your comment. I
Yeah.
replied to you.
Yeah, because I went, whoa, yet again, this is so similar to, yeah, but what my guides have been, they've been trying to kind of drill this, drill into is not the right phrase, but anyway, they've been kind of getting a little bit like, Martha, listen up. We're telling you the same thing over and over again. But reading your book helped me let it really land in this conversation also. The way they've been putting it to me, they keep having me come into the form of a rose in my heart and in my being. And they keep saying, okay, look, step number one, every day in my prayers, when I ask, what is mine to do at the end of my prayer, I say, I am highest quantum source light. What is mine to do? And then I get shown by the light what is mine to do. Okay, so for years and years and years, typically what is mine to do is I get taken straight out of the time-space continuum into the void, and then I get exploded into nothing or the particles of light. So again, there's a lot of overlaps between
Yeah.
these things in your book, but it's really like getting into that state where you let go of all the karmic stuff. Okay. But then from that state of exploding into particles of infinite light, that's the state of infinite possibility, right?
Yeah.
And so from there, then they're having the state of infinite possibility form into me as a rose. And they're like,
Yeah.
just relax.
Mm, I
Just
love it.
be in that contentment state. And then they keep saying, and just let everything come to you, like the bees and the air and the rain and the other flowers in the garden. Just like be in that kind of state of being, which to me is
Yeah.
so similar to your video, your book, like all the things. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Beautiful.
all right, I get it.
Beautiful.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Mm. And then here we are doing this on 8/8
Right,
Lionsgate
right.
portal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. I mean, truly, this conversation, your book has been a life shift for me. I can feel it. It's one of those moments, where it's like you're going along, then bing. Like this
Love that. That is
really deep.
thrilling. That's
Oh no,
thrilling for me.
truly.
Thank
Like, yeah, it's fundamentally shifted me. So yeah, yeah, truly, truly. I'm so grateful. So grateful.
you.
Yeah, this is why, we should not be doing these things as isolated silos because we're
Yes,
doing this
we have to
all
share.
together.
Yeah. Yeah,
The whole
exactly. We have to
point.
talk.
Yeah, we need each other. So
Yeah.
yay. So yes, describe your programs, all the amazing things you're doing.
Thanks so much. So everything can be found on my name. My name is Ann Tucker. It's Ann with an E. My website is Ann Tucker. My YouTube channel is Ann Tucker. I do have coming up I've got a retreat coming up in October if people want to be in person in Seattle. And I have a Soul Convergence, which is my deepest healing program, which we mentioned briefly before, which is, it's a amazing program where people can access the kind of sort of, it's just like the winning I had, the stuff that's really hard to see or remember or pull apart. It's the womb up through age 7. And it's a beautiful process. People come away from that. We see families repaired, relationships that have been estranged. All of a sudden, the person shows up at the door. We see lots of people have had hearing restored and health issues dissolve and all kind. I mean, you just it's not always, you don't always get exactly what you came for, but you get exactly what was the perfect next best thing on your
Mm,
journey. that it is always for your highest and best because the entire process is guided by the angels.
Oh,
So it is each person has a unique experience, but yeah, but absolutely amazing things. People come out channeling and it's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know of anything else like it out there. I know of one, Emmanuel Dagger has his own version of a something like that, but
Yeah.
those are the only two programs that I know that really address, like, yeah, how can you be healing this? I mean, obviously there's
Yeah.
therapy, there's traditional therapy, but this program, yeah, exquisite. I'm so grateful you're holding that,
Thank you
continuing
so
to
much.
hold it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So those are the two main things. There is going to be down the road a workshop that's based on the book that goes deep into the concepts of the book, but I'm in the process of creating it now, so it doesn't exist yet. I mentioned it in
But
the
it
book, but
will.
it is like a, t
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yay. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you so much. What a fun conversation. I can't tell you what a thrill it is to talk with you that you read deeply into the book and to be able to have this kind of, serious conversation about it is and lighthearted, but also deep conversation about it is just such a joy for me. So thank you.
Aw, yay. It was totally, again, my pleasure, my honor, and it was meant to be. Like for me, for me.
Yeah. Thanks.
Selfishly. Really. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, we would love to hear what's come alive for all of you. And please, yeah, let us share what comes alive when you get the book, you read the book, if you feel called to read it, connect with it. I would love to hear because yeah, it just feels so more and more and more like we are creating this cohesive field of that love, right? But this
Yeah.
this growing and growing and growing community of all of these spaces coming together, and because we're all doing the same, it's the
Right.
same point. It's the
Yes. Yeah.
same goal. And
Exactly.
yeah, oh, so grateful we are all doing it
Yeah.
together.
Me too. It's essential.
Yeah. All right. See you all soon.
Thank you.